Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy Duncan. Jimmy, it is Wednesday night, September the 7th, 2022, Jimmy. And if it's Wednesday night,
It's Black Men Speak, Tom. So let's give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music, to Forest Films in our own studio for setting up our virtual studio, and Tom. I see two really smart, sharp gentlemen that are here tonight. So won't you introduce our topic and introduce our guests, and let's get this show started. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share the information about this channel as we try to grow this year. And get ready for a very interesting, fascinating topic. And like the quote Keisha Jones, Tom, this show is not for play. This is serious stuff here. So let's get started, Tom.
all right, good deal. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining in tonight. We have two special guests that are returning guests, and we're definitely happy to have them here. Dwight Johnson and Tirrell Richard, both of them subject matter experts in the real estate industry. And folks,
Experts, people.
yes, sir. And we are here to talk about wealth in America, wealth in Black America in particular, and what real estate has to do with that. Our topic for tonight is real estate the best strategy? Is real estate the best strategy to close the wealth gap in America? Jimmy, we've had this conversation several times when we talk about the historical context of our dubious existence in this experiment called the United States of America, the largest economy in the world, which, of course, our ancestors built. However, we also have to have the conversation about why is it that economically we seem to be closer to the bottom of the totem pole than the top. And so we are going to talk a little bit about what real estate has to do with that. If we look at the statistics today, about maybe 42, 43% of Black Americans own households in America. In the Asian community, about 62%, white America, 72%, Hispanic population, about half. But, if we really look and peel back the numbers on this, the most significant portion of most people's health is real estate, starting with their household. And therein starts our conversation. Welcome, Mr. Tirrell. Welcome, Mr. Johnson. Welcome back. Thank you very much for being here tonight with us.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be back.
Good deal. So what we're going to do is to have you talk briefly about what you do. Why you're kind of in the real estate, helping folks acquire real estate assets. And Tirrell, you help folks to find the money to get that. So we'll start with both. You tell us a little bit about what you guys do. Then we're going to talk about the context of real estate and building wealth in Black America, and then we'll see how that conversation goes. Why don't we start with you first, Tirrell?
Okay, yes. So I've been in the real estate industry for about 24 years, straight out of college. I got my degree in real estate, finance with a real estate option. And I've worked at, several of the big banks. The most recent one was Bank of America. I am, I'm a manager of a branch manager of a mortgage company called Infinity Mortgage, and just love what I do. I definitely, without you asking me, yes, this is the way to bridge the gap of wealth through real estate. And what I like doing is I like working with my clients to not only help put them in a home, but put them in the right home. To make sure that they're not trying to over qualify for homes or think that you have to be in the most expensive home to live your dream.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Brother Johnson, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, how long you've been doing that, and then we'll go from there.
Right. Again, thanks again for having me back on the show. It's always an honor to be able to come back. That means maybe you share value. So excited to be back with your platform tonight. I'm a residential real estate professional in the Houston market, licensed all over the Texas, but I focus primarily in Houston in the residential space. Been in the business 6 years. I work with Keller Williams, one of the 13 market centers in the Houston area for Keller Williams, one of the top agents in the Houston area of color, and was recently recognized on the national level for my production as well. So just look forward to always educating people and giving back. And just like Brother Tirrell said, real estate is definitely the key to closing that gap.
So let's start out with the fundamental questions. Why, in your opinion, and what have you seen? What has your experience taught you as to why African Americans seem to be behind every group when it comes to home ownership and the role that plays in opportunity in America? We'll start with you, Dwight.
Probably one of the main reasons is for lack of education, lack of programs similar to this for folks that have the knowledge, not necessarily sharing the knowledge and helping to create other real estate professionals in this space. The reality of it is in most lines of business, the folks that you do the most business with typically look like you. So I think we need more education in this space and more real estate professionals such as Brother Tirrell and myself that are helping to create more real estate professionals so we can take that message wider. It's only so much that one or two people can do. So if we can bring more people into the space, then I think that's the way we could touch more homeowners and create more wealth.
What about you, Tirrell? What are your thoughts?
Well, I will say that, historically, that was a problem, back in, some of the days where we were denied the same access as other qualified applicants, based on, skin tone. That was a problem. I don't want to say what years that was. I kind of feel today it's, I read something very interesting that said that and I will quote this, but I need to research to make sure it's 100% correct. But they said that the rest of the world spends about $50 on their entertainment versus $1 of education, where we spend $400 on entertainment to $1 of education. Yeah. So what that means to me is that we're not saving our money to where we can, have not only homes you live in, but, multiple homes that, can be another income stream and income source for you. I just feel that we spend our money in some of the wrong areas because we're trying to look like we have the dream as opposed to having it.
Gotcha. So we talk about consumerism, we talk about lifestyle, but the interesting thing, and I guess if we look over the last couple of generations, we're going to some of the same schools. Not to say that we're having the same conversations in our households, but what do you believe contributes to the huge gulf, in terms of what's being shared, such that it creates such a huge division when it comes to home ownership and wealth? What are the conversations that were not happening? What's going on that contributes to this huge gulf when it comes to home ownership, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to some of the things that you guys are sharing?
Again, I'd have to refer back to education or lack of sharing knowledge. I still run into it from time to time where people that I look to, and they're not always so open to share their knowledge and to share their information. So I think it's a lack of information. And for those of us that have it, it's a lack of willingness to share it. And, there's just the mentality of a lot of people think they got to a certain place on their own and they just, hey, I figured it out, you figured it out. And I think these type of platforms and brothers like Tirrell, we gotta share this information. He gave an example of if he can't help someone in his mortgage space, he would tell them about another person that could help them. A lot of people won't be that forthcoming. If I can't help it, if it's not going to benefit me, I just keep the information to myself. Not enough coming from contribution.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So, you guys have both been in this space, and I know you've been doing well. Over the last 3-4 plus some odd years, we've seen one of the largest booms in the real estate market in recent history, especially when you consider that, a little bit over a decade ago during the Great Recession, we were all living during that period of time. And we saw that. And then when we look at the last, 3 to 5 years, we probably had one of the greatest upticks in the real estate market in probably the last generation or so. What have you seen? What are your personal thoughts on where we are now? Because things have slowed down And when you look at our community, and have we taken advantage of this? Have we missed the boat? What are you seeing right now that things are beginning to slow down? We'll start with you, Dwight.
Have we taken advantage of it? Yes, I'd say to some degree we've definitely taken advantage of it. I've helped, probably 80 families over the last couple of years. So we definitely we're definitely taking advantage of it, but it's still too few, so not enough. We've definitely have a lot of people have taken advantage of the market when rates were. And rates are still decent now, but when they were exceptional, there were everyone that I could tell and not come across as a salesperson. I educated them and shared my professional opinion and got them active as best as possible. So a lot of people took heed, even if they weren't buying, even if they were investing. So from my seat, I do think a lot of people took advantage of that unique market we're in. And I'm still trying to encourage people, believe it or not, to take advantage of it now. It's not as good as it was 12 months ago, but it's still, historically speaking, it's still a great time to be taking advantage of it today. So the education component is more important now than ever, because perception is that all of a sudden it's out of control or rates are too high or it's unaffordable. But I disagree with that. And so I'm trying to tell everybody I can that it's still a good time to take advantage of. It's always a good time to take advantage of housing. I think Tirrell will agree with that.
Right.
So Tirrell, and kind of add to that. And I mean, if we look at the last 3 to 5 years, I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but if we talk about here in Texas, we're not just talking about the interest rates, but the prices alone now. And even first time buyers, young folks or, new couples who are starting out, it's a whole different game today than it was just 3 or 4 years ago, just trying to get into a starter home when we just look at the prices outright for getting into a home. So give me your thoughts on what you've seen over the last 3 to 5 years.
Okay, I'll kind of answer that question. I definitely agree with Dwight, but there's some also I would like to say that I don't believe that we as African Americans have and even Hispanics have not taken advantage of it like some of our other counterparts. Have we taken advantage of getting homes that we're going to live in? Yes. What I've noticed that has been the difference, the way to bridge this gap has been investment homes. And I work with not only a lot of first-time home buyers and people buying homes that they're going to live in, but I work with a lot of investors. And I will say that I've had a majority of my investors not look like me. And I'll give you a story on one of my investors, and I have some very good investors look like me as well, but the majority of them do not look like me. And I'll tell you their thought process versus some of ours, and what has happened. I have a gentleman that we bought, I'm going to say about 10 homes within the last, not 3 years, but last 4 years. We bought 10 investment homes, all had mortgages on them. But the difference with what he came with me probably 4 months ago was the fact that he sold 6 out of those 10 investment homes. And he said at what he made, even subtracting what he put out of his pocket on the down payment and closing costs, he made over $700,000 after he sold 6 of those homes and still has about 4 of them left. But he made $700,000 he wouldn't have today. So over the process of 4 years, he was able to almost get about $200,000 a year just on investments. And not to mention that he was renting those houses out before he sold them. So it wasn't like he was making that mortgage payment. He was probably pocketing some money as well. So, I mean, that is something that can be life-changing. Just think about if you didn't do 10 homes, if you were able to do 20 homes, if you're able to do 30, it can really change your life if you're disciplined and you have the capital to start up and you save for the capital to start up.
Now, put a pencil in that right quick, because that is where most people have the rub, is having access to capital in order to get into that game. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I mean that's an amazing story, and we definitely need to hear more stories about that. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of them out there, but one of the biggest hurdles that most folks, and especially folks in our community, find is lack of access to capital to even get in that game. So I mean, Do you have to have a ton of money to get into the game? What is it that folks need to know, our potential listeners, who may or may not have their own home right now, but who want to take advantage of this? And is it too late?
Is that directed to me or?
And Tom,
Either
with that, let's hold that. We'll be right back.
Okay. Perfect.
Well, hold that thought, gentlemen. Okay,
All
message
right,
from
very
our
nice.
sponsor. So go ahead, Tom.
All right, we'll start out with you, Dwight.
And I had people that look like me to take advantage of some of those deals too. A lot of it comes down to it seems like every time we get on these shows, some theme arises within the theme. But so far for me, it's education. I have some good examples and some poor examples. Just sometimes people just do not take direction or advice well. Even people that are capable, they want to do it in many cases their way. You know, I know a young nurse that is in a position to invest, but they just want to get every single thing paid off before they start. And that's great to have a house free and clear, but not. And I don't believe anyone's missed the boat. But how much more could you have done? You know, you only owed less than $10,000 on a primary home, and you could have started 2 months ago, and they could have had 4 or 5 of these homes that Tirrell's talking about. So sometimes either we don't do a good enough job educating, but also the people that look like you and I are the most difficult people to educate.
Correct.
In many cases. So, there's lots of examples like Tirrell's talking about, but that guy probably didn't know he was going to get 10 when he started. He had a plan to get 1 or 2, and he trusted the process. He hired a person that he trusted, and they took an action, and the action led to another action. So sometimes, we're our own worst enemies sometimes, in terms of you think you know more than me, the realtor, or you think you know more than Tirrell, the mortgage guy, or whatever. And so you'll take bits and pieces of our information, but you don't fully trust us or you don't fully implement it. So we kind of have that problem. Not enough education being shared, but even when it's shared, we ourselves are some of the most difficult people to educate. And so that's a problem that I see as well. But I certainly don't think it's too late, though. We talked about that. Have we missed the mark, or have we missed anything like that? I was at a real estate conference just recently, and where rates are now, they're still lower than and this is not my space, Tirrell, so correct me if I'm wrong, but wherever rates are today, they're still lower than the 20-year average, the last 20 years. Today's rates are lower than the average over the last 20 years. So no way have you missed the boat. Let's do something today.
Correct.
Next question.
Dwight, what about pricing?
If we look at, go
Let
ahead.
me ask a quick question about pricing.
Sure.
Yes, sir. With the Wall Street guys, I think the last article I read suggests that they may own as much as 15% of American housing, and of course trying to compete against their deal where they're getting money at 0% interest or 0.25% interest because the money's cheap to them. How do regular people outbid them or compete against their offers when they can step in with a 50% over asking, 25% over asking, and so even the asking doesn't even get you a home these days. Can you speak to that real quick?
Yeah, well, that's another reason I think now is probably the perfect time. I mean, this market had to fix itself to some degree, And today in my market, we're not necessarily having to pay 20, 30, 50 over anymore.
Correct.
In fact, we're getting things at value. And in some cases, we're buying equity on the way in. So it is starting to level off from that perspective. But certainly 6-9 months ago, what you stated is was certainly accurate. People paying 40, 50 over, and we just don't have the capacity to do that. So that was the case. One of the things that I don't know if Tirrell has it or not, but there are programs out there now that are turning traditional buyers into cash buyers. So the cash buyers can now compete with the institutional buyers. So now the pricing is not an issue. Now can you compete? Can you portray yourself as cash? Can you close quickly? Can you do those things? And all of that's going to come back to working with the right professionals, because there's people out there that have no idea that these programs exist. Cash buyer programs, buy before you sell programs. I need my equity, but I don't have the money to fix it. I got equity, but I can't fix it. Well, there are programs now where you can buy your house and you can sell your other house 6 months later. You can get this house in the best scenario and now take the money and fix it up and sell the other one in the best scenario. You could win. You could typically win on both sides. But you need to be partnering with people that are informed. So it matters who you're in business with. That's part of it. It matters who you're in business with.
No, that's great insight. Tirrell, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have anything to add?
Well, I'm gonna kind of double back, because I thought it was a very important topic that you brought up, because there's a lot of, I believe, listeners out here that are wanting to buy houses and wanting to invest in different things. And your question was, does it take all this money to invest? And I'm going to give it 3 different answers, if you may. The first part is you do need to change your lifestyle. Sometimes you need to bring your lunch to work instead of eating out every day. Take your wife out once a week, not 3 times a week. Don't go to all those concerts. Don't. And the biggest thing in our community, don't feel you got to go to lavish trips every year, 2-3 lavish trips. Sometimes, hey, if you live in Houston, take a trip to an hour away in Houston and make that like a vacation, instead of paying all these expensive things, while you're saving money, so you can use that money to acquire, property, or have money on the side to do different things. But there's 2 other ways that a lot of my people come to me, because I give them different thought processes on how to reinvent the wheel. And one of the ways is when you buy your first home, you get into a home, sometimes at 0% down, sometimes at 5% down, sometimes 3%. It doesn't have to be that much. Buying a rental property is usually about 20% down or 25%. But you can take your first home, which is usually a starter home, as long as you didn't, try to buy the world on your first home, and make that become your rental property. Purchase your next home at 5% and turn that first home into an investment property and let that make money for you. And as that's making money for you, now you're putting that together so you can buy your next home at 20% down. Now you're using that home as an asset. Also,
and let me make sure that you repeat that so our listeners out there got that right, because there are different tiers of this thing. So, starter home, I heard you say somewhere between maybe 0 down, 3%, 5%, 10% down on a starter home. And, once you get past the starter home, you could make that an investment property. So kind of reiterate what you just said there, so our listeners
your first home doesn't have to be your last home. So don't go into your first home thinking you have to have every frill in the world. Understand that there are some luxuries that you're not going to have, and your income normally, increases, especially when you buy young, it's going to increase. So when your income has matched to, you can get a better home, instead of selling that home, unless you can make a $300,000 killing on it or something like that. Use that to be your first investment home. Allow that to be your investment home. And on the second home you buy, that can be the house you live in. You still can only put 5% down, or those limits, 3.5%, 3%. There's different programs out there. But there's also another thing out there that a lot of people don't think of, and this is more for middle-aged people. As our kids get older, our kids are going to go to college. There's a product called a kiddie condo. Every company doesn't have it, but a kiddie condo allows, a father and a mother to buy a home for their college student in their college town, like it's a first home. You get the same rates as a first home. You get the same low down payment. And how about this? How about you buy not only a single family home, but buy a duplex or quadruplex? A quadruplex means it's 4 homes.
Yep.
You can literally, and this is our plan. My daughter's 17. I've already talked to my wife. My plan is I want to buy at least a duplex or quadruplex, whatever city she goes to. And I'm going to rent out the other 3 places to pay for her rent and all those together. So I'm not paying any money on it, and it gives me another home. And when she moves out, now I even just make even more money. So now my daughter has a free place to stay. Plus I have another investment property, and I didn't put that much down. I put 5% down. So that's another concept is when you're middle aged and your kids ready to go to college, or your kids are going to college, instead of having them stay off campus, allow your opportunity to their opportunity become your opportunity.
No, that is outstanding. Anything to add to that, Dwight?
No, I was just going to make note in the comments that these are excellent ideas. So you need to find resources like this where you can learn, because even though I'm coming here as a panelist, I'm taking notes in the interim, and I'm learning. Just the idea of, to reiterate what he said, is buy a primary home, basically buy a second primary home and turn your original primary into an investment. It's a great concept. Yeah. So there you go. And you never had to get into the 15, 20, 25% range. So turn your primary into an investment and buy a second one. And absolutely in love with the kiddie condo.
I've never heard of it.
I have a junior, and I never heard it. And I'm doing that too. So again, I don't need Brother Tirrell to give me every single thing about the kiddie condo concept. I know it now. Now I'm gonna look at it and I can do it. So sometimes we want to research that. I never heard of that. It must not be a good thing. Well, hey, you don't have to have heard of anything, and that's our problem sometimes.
And so you are literally creating wealth for your kids as they are going to school.
Well, you're not having to pay where they're going to live. You give them a free play. You're creating wealth for yourself. You're putting them in school so they can create their own wealth. You're allowing their opportunity to become your opportunity by using their chance of going to a school it could be in your town as well, but going to a school and saying, hey, instead of me paying rent for them, how about I buy a nearby and try to make sure it's close to the campus, or you're not going to get college students to rent there, but find somewhere that you have a duplex, a triplex, or a quadruplex that will allow you to rent that out. To buy that, and then you can rent out the other sides, and you can have them pay enough to cover your child's place as well. So you're not having to pay for their place. They have a free place, and it's an investment property for you when they leave. And they may even go to they may go to graduate somewhere else and do it in another city too.
Well, you may be able to dip into that tuition cost also.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, we're about halfway through the show. Jimmy, I think you have another commercial coming on. When we come back, you talked about different programs, Tirrell, and I'd like to talk about a program that I seem to have just heard about with Bank of America that is targeting African-American and Latin American homeowners. And so I want to talk about that briefly, but Jimmy, I think before that, you have another commercial coming up, right?
Yeah, from our sponsor, let's get that over with and come back and get this interesting information from these gentlemen.
All right. All right.
All right,
We
we're
are
back.
back. So, wanted to get your thoughts on this. I just found out about this earlier this week. Bank of America seems to be targeting an initiative to help close the wealth gap in America. And what I'm understanding thus far is that they are targeting African American and Hispanic, the Black and Latin American community to get them into a home. And these are, I believe, nothing down first-time home buyers with a few specific criteria. Tirrell, understand that you have a background and a relationship with Bank of America. Tell us a little bit about what you know and what the opportunity is. Kind of unpack that for us.
Okay, well, first of all, I used to work for Bank of America. I don't consider people in my industry competitors of mine. So, when I found about this program, I called my friends. I have several friends over there, and they sent me the specs on it. I read through the specs. I wanted to educate myself. I called my many realtors. I sent them the specs that are not, offered to everybody. Some people may think that's crazy, but one of my values and the reason my realtors work with me is because of the information that I'm always able to give them, because I would rather put somebody who wants to be in a home in a better situation if I can't give them the best situation. So the specs are this. You being either African American or Hispanic, you can qualify. Now, I have different professionals that I can give our viewers to. So I would rather them call me and I put them with the right people from Bank of America. Because one of the biggest problems with being at the bank is that everybody that works at the bank is or works in that industry are not very knowledgeable. So you have to be with the right professional, and I have the right guys that I would put you with. But the biggest, there's a lot of different things you have to qualify with, and credit score is not one of them, for what I understand. They're not looking at credit score. It is 100% financing, and you also pay no closing costs. So that's very huge that you have no closing costs and zero down. The area that you have to live in, that you're buying, the house does have to be in a 50% or greater Hispanic and Black area. So as long as if it's 25% Black and 26% Hispanic or 25% Hispanic, it qualifies. If it's less, if both of those demographics are less than 50%, that area does not qualify. Also, you do need to be a first-time home buyer. But to our listeners, people think a first-time home buyer is somebody that buys their first home. That's not correct. A first-time home buyer in Texas is defined as a person that has not lived or owned a home, hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. So if you sold your home over 3 years ago, then you're a first-time home buyer. If you got divorced and you were still on that home and your husband owns that home, you're not a first-time home buyer. So you have to be separated from home ownership for at least 3 years to be considered a first-time home buyer. Also, another one of the factors is, depending on the area you're going to live in, your household income cannot be more than 150% of the area median income. That means on an annual basis, I'm gonna go a low figure, but if you make $36,000 a year, your household cannot make more than $54,000 a year to qualify. That's 100%. If that area the median of that area is 36,000. On a monthly basis, that's saying at $3,000, that's $4,500 a month. So you have to be below that as well, because they're trying to help out people in need, not people that, even if they are, Hispanic or African American, they're not trying to help out.
So if I'm hearing you right, they're trying to help folks in need, not in
Tommy wouldn't qualify.
Correct, and they're
Right.
also trying
So Tommy, you wouldn't
They're also
qualify.
trying to build up our neighborhood. They want it in our neighborhood, so they want to build up our neighborhoods. They don't want us to go to other neighborhoods and take advantage of this, which is, your prerogative. You just can't use that program. They're really just trying to, from what I understand, it's a way that they're trying to. They understand that the gap has widened, and they understand that they have a lot of that Americans, white Americans, the non-Black Hispanic Americans have a lot to do with the home ownership problem that we had, 30, 40 years, maybe even 20 years ago. And they're trying to help out for their past wrongdoing.
Gotcha. All right, looks like we had a little distortion there, but we are now back. So no, it sounds like a very interesting program. Dwight, were you aware of this? Do you have anyone kind of in your circle who's looking at this program as well?
Yeah, I was made aware of it out in Tampa less than a month ago. I was out there for a National Real Estate Convention, and the Bank of America folks, lots of their executives were there at the NARAB convention. So that's where I first got exposure to it. I do have one trusted partner in the Bank of America space, but like Brother Tirrell said, it is important. Everybody over there may not know it well or may not have your best interest, so it's gonna matter. It always matters who you partner with. So I am familiar with it, and this part I'm not positive, but I've heard rumblings that Wells Fargo might be coming out with something similar soon.
Correct.
I recently heard that as well.
Me as well. I have Wells Fargo friends as well. I used to work at Wells Fargo for about 5 years at one time too, so I definitely have friends over there too, and they're hoping to come up with something. They don't want Bank of America to have a step up on them.
That makes complete sense. Complete sense. So let me ask you this, kind of getting back to the topic of the show and leveraging real estate to close the wealth gap in America. And I'll be very, very transparent. We're concerned about the wealth gap in Black America as it pertains to the rest of America. On average, the net worth in Black households is maybe in the mid-20s, $24,000, $25,000 a year. I believe on average in America, we're probably looking at somewhere in the mid-100s, maybe $150,000 to $160,000 per year. But a large part of that, of course, has to do with real estate, because that really is the largest part of the wealth equation when it comes to most Americans, Asian Americans, Caucasian Americans, now emerging Latin Americans. And so if we look at a model or systems in order to close that wealth gap, I cannot see real estate not being a part of that. Looking at the numbers over a few articles that I read earlier today about in the low 40s, maybe 42, 43%, and these numbers are maybe a year or two old, maybe 42, 43% of Black Americans owned their own home as opposed to renting. Caucasian Americans about 72%, so about 30 points behind. Bank of America has this initiative to help close that wealth gap. Wells Fargo may be doing the same thing. Dwight, you're talking about getting that whole education piece in order to have the knowledge and to be in a position to take advantage of these opportunities. What would your recommendations for, let's say, our listeners, even those who are listening after the day, to help at their individual level, at their block level, at their family's level, leverage real estate in order to accumulate wealth and close that wealth gap?
It's just so fundamental for me, because I've always known that even before I thought about it as a gap, real estate is just a tool to build wealth. There's tax breaks. There's so many. Everything about it makes sense. You can't not have real estate in the equation. Probably the only other thing that's probably even more difficult and more challenging in real estate is stocks or investing, and that's even tougher. But real estate is just set up in terms of being able to write off your mortgage interest, your taxes, your depreciation, and all that. It's just fundamental to wealth building. And for me, the mindset has to be, if I'm an adult and I live somewhere, I have to be paying something. So just something that fundamental. If I'm paying X amount of dollars a month, if a portion of it is going to what I own, just fundamentally right there, you're that much better off than anything else, because you're paying rent or you're paying someone's mortgage somewhere regardless. Why not be your own? So if you just break it that elementary, if you're paying anything to live anywhere, that goal has got to be for it to be your own. When it's your own, then you got to think about how can I compound that, or how can I double, or what can I do with it from that point on. But the original thought process is to get out of the mindset of giving money away and start owning. So it's just it's the question is so simple, it's almost tough to answer. Like it's just fundamental to a lot of us. But again, I'm going to go back to, when you talk to people, you can't talk down, but you just got to continue to educate, continue to make yourself available, share your information, meet people where they are, and continue to educate them until they hopefully get it. And I think from my seat, when I answered the question earlier, that we helped a lot of people. We really did. So you just got to start with one or two or three. If I can help somebody, then probably that person's going to be able to help somebody, or someone's going to say, how did you get a house? I mean, we're from the same side of the track, or we make about the same amount. So if I can just help one person that may have not saw themselves in that space to do it, by doing that indirectly, I'm going to help a lot of other people as well. So it just starts with help the people that want to be helped, and keep trying and giving your best.
All right. Now
Okay,
that's
Tom,
outstanding.
let's get a couple of
And 12
questions off the chat line.
Yeah, exactly. I saw
Amnon
that.
and brother. So yes, go ahead. Let our guests answer a couple of questions off the chat line.
Right. We have, thank you, I'm done for coming out. It says, does the Bank of America program pertain to new house build, or just to the purchase of pre-existing homes? Otherwise, does this apply to homes that are being newly built or pre-existing homes?
Okay, and I'm going to answer that twofold, because I see our listeners are definitely loving that program. And I will say, first of all, it does not pertain to new homes or pre-existing. You do either one. It's depending on the area that you're going to be in. So it can be new or it can be existing. But I want to say that, honestly, when this program came out with Bank of America, it didn't change a lot. What it did change was they're not having credit score guidelines. Lenders that work with down payment assistance programs, or if you can qualify in a USDA home, you can get in with $0. You can have the government. I work on down payment assistance homes, every month, where my clients don't put any money down. The difference is they don't have to be a first time home buyer. I can get somebody that just sold a house a year ago with down payment assistance that will take care of your down payment. Sometimes even your closing costs. You may have to pay some closing costs, but that is not the only program out there. But to answer that specific question, you can, as long as it's in the right area, you can get a new or existing pre-existing home with the Bank of America program.
All right, outstanding. Anything that you would add to that, Dwight?
On one level two, same thing. I've been able to get clients. They usually have to bring a little bit of money, but I've been able to get closing costs and concessions from elsewhere as well. That has started to happen. That's another result of the market that we're in now, with the limited inventory and the rates going up. It's caused the days on market to be a little longer than normal, and the motivated sellers now, we're able to get them to help with this. So there's lots of ways when you're working with the right people to get help. You just have to make the consumer needs to make the decision that that's what they want to do.
Right.
Research and partner with true professionals that focus on the job, not necessarily income or thing like that. If you make a decision that you want to own a home with or without a Bank of America or Wells Fargo program, if you will partner with the right professionals, we'll tell you how to do it. And we've been able to do a lot of these things: no payment, down payment, closing costs, those type of things. There doesn't have to be a program for that to happen. Those things can be negotiated, because almost everything in the real estate transaction is negotiable.
Correct.
Now, this year, within the last year, we've had several interest rate spikes. And again, interest rates, if we look at the historical averages, still aren't out of whack. But, I think some people are starting to get a little bit nervous. You look at what's going on in the market. But when it comes to real estate and the average worker, homeowner or no, what would you tell them at this point? What would you tell them in terms of giving them advice if they want to say, hey, I have a home. How do I leverage that in order to grow my wealth in real estate? versus the person who maybe is a renter right now and they're paying these high rents, some of them going up easy 200, 300 plus per year on their rent when they could actually have their own homes. Can either of you, both of you, kind of address both of those individuals or households in America in terms of what they need to be thinking about now? Because they're looking at, man, it costs a whole heck of a lot to buy a house now than it did just 2 or 3 years ago. What am I going to do now?
I can definitely answer that. I'll go on the renting part, the second question. I tell, my clients that are renters, they go, oh man, I could have bought this house last year for 3%. Now the rates are over, almost double. I'm like, yeah, but when you rent it, all this time, you're paying 100% interest. Renting is 100% interest. You're
explain that. Okay, explain that, please.
That means that you have no ownership in it. Every dollar you put to your rent does no good for you but put a roof over your head. When you are buying a house, even at 6%, a portion of that money is going to buy that home. Eventually, you're not going to have that. 30 years from now, if you pay rent, you'll have rent still 30 years, you'll have no ownership. You can have that house paid for and own 2 or 3 more, in that same amount of time. And also the big thing people don't think about is that if I buy a house today at $2,000 and my rent has really gone up is $1,800, you think you're saving $200, you're really not, because if you don't refinance in 10 years, your payment is $2,000. What is rent going to be in 10 years? You're not going to be paying $1,800 in 10 years.
Yeah,
that's going to keep going up.
23.
Yeah. So you're losing out every time that you wait. I mean, there is no instance I would say that you need to stick with renting over that. You need to, you need to make a decision and say, I'm going to take myself out of this, paying somebody else's, paying for somebody else, and I'm going to start doing for myself. And that comes with home ownership and only with it.
I'll tack on to that part 2 of your question as well. So how I would respond to that from a realtor seat is, and it's always the same. I don't care if the rate was 2% or if we see 10 again or whatever. And I'd be willing to bet if we polled each of us at what their first home interest rate was, it's probably way more than it is now, but that's another topic. But my response would be, if you plan to be in this place for as little as 18 months, but for sure 24 months or more, buy it. Disregard the rate. If you can afford it today and you think you're going to be in that spot for 24 months, buy it. It's irrelevant.
Okay. Explain that.
Because rates will go down and homes will always appreciate. So it's going to catch up to itself anyway. Now, you could make a bad decision if you your job has got you moving and you got this job that relocates every 18 months and that's a gray area. I would even say in that case, you still might do it, because I would suggest, like Brother Tirrell's first suggestion, take that house and make that your investment and go somewhere else. So I could make the argument in any case, and not being salesy, that the right thing to do is buy. But certainly if it's 18 months or more, do it, because if rates go down, you can refinance down. If rates go up like they did from 18 months ago, you got it at 6 instead of 9, and you'll be thanking me at that point.
That's right.
So bottom line, it's always a good time to be in real estate.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But we are talking about 2 real estate professionals here as well. But I think about this, and if we think about parents who may have owned a home, or our grandparents who owned a home, looks like we may have a caller here. So give me just a second. I'll answer this call.
Sounds good.
Good evening. This is Black Men Speak. Could you tell us your name, where you are from, and what your question is?
Good evening. My name is Tanya, and I'm from Dallas, and I am in a 120-degree sauna. So I got to say this question and get off the phone real quick before my phone burns up. Okay. First of all, let me say you guys are doing a great job. I am gaining so much knowledge. Thank you for the show. Let me ask you a quick question about investing in international real estate, like in places like Mexico. A good friend of mine who is an accountant told me about some opportunities in Tulum, Mexico. can we get better investment deals from places that are on an international scale rather than in America? I'll hang up. Thank you guys for taking my call.
Thank you. Okay, did y'all get the question there? The
I did,
caller was
yeah.
asking about investing in real estate in international markets.
I will.
Well,
Great
can
question,
can I chime in on that one, Tom?
Sure,
Yes.
Jim.
Okay. I'm not a real estate expert like these guys are, but I do know that sometimes some countries, like Mexico, for instance, don't allow foreigners to really own property. You have to go through a trust and have the trust that protects you on the property. So there's some loopholes there. Costa Rica, Costa Rica is a little different, and so every country is a little different about property ownership. So, just do your homework and understand that sometimes you may not own the property directly. You may have to go to an insurance company or a trust company to buy property in foreign countries.
Okay. All right, that'll work. Tirrell, I'll let you start, and then Dwight, we'll go with you.
Okay, so because my company, we only operate in the U.S., I have not made it a point to be knowledgeable on that question. But I do know this: me myself, if I'm not a citizen or going to live in that country, I don't trust it. I have my wife is from other countries, from Trinidad. I've heard in other situations where homes have been taken from people who have either rental property there. Yeah, or you're not a citizen, and if I don't know the laws of the country, and I'm not a citizen to where I have some protections, that's a bitter pill for me to swallow. I'm not going to try to, buy a home somewhere that, that I don't know what the government is capable of, because you can lose a lot of money. You may make some money, but I would rather deal with the United States and deal with that.
And so where I was going to jump in on there is education is always
try Panama government there fail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Education is going to always be the key. What I can say is, having worked for Keller Williams, we have the largest agent count around the world. So we're in 43 regions around the world. So if someone has an interest, it's not my forte either. And I think as professionals, we need to give good information, and it's okay to say you don't know or you're not sure.
Correct.
But I do have a very large Black real estate network of people that are all pretty good at what they do wherever they do it, including some of these countries. So if someone has interest, what I would effort to do is partner you, do some due diligence on the person and maybe connect you with a person or two in that region, and then you can have that conversation with them. So there are lots of people investing in Dominican Republic. I mean, I know people that are doing it, Jamaica and some other places. So I just personally don't know enough to answer that with any type of confidence. But if someone sincerely wants to know about that, that is one of the things that I pride myself on, to be able to connect people in real estate anywhere. I mean, I'm in Houston, I'm on a Dallas show. So I know people just about in every region of the country. And if you have an interest with that, I'd be happy to do some homework and try to connect you with someone in one of those places.
Now, maybe that begs
I think
the question.
Tirrell hit on a key point, Tom, that you need to do your research on the government. Make sure it's a stable government. And even if it's stable today, it may be over, and your property can be confiscated. So, just be careful what you're getting into. Make sure they have a long, rich history of stabilization that you can trust going into the future.
I would say this. I know that there are a lot of folks who have been investing overseas for a very long time, and I think what it is incumbent is making sure that you have a team that is invested in that country or in that area. An attorney, folks in real estate, folks who understand the political climate there, and make sure these are folks that you have vetted and that you trust. So, it's going to be extremely important that you're making sure that you work with a team. Let me find out. Give me just a second here.
I would imagine that property in the Donbass region of Ukraine may be cheap now, but do you really want to invest in that area when the bombs are going back and forth between Russia and Ukraine? So,
Okay, gentlemen, we do have another caller. My name is Tommy Duncan. Welcome to Black Men
Okay.
Speak. If you could identify your name, where you are from, and what question or thought you might have.
Hi, my name's Eli, calling from Allen, Texas, and just had a question on the kind of the current market situation. If I'm a homeowner and I have gained some equity as the prices have increased, and my conversations I've had have led to a lot of people saying, well, maybe it's time to take out a home equity loan or a HELOC and put that, especially with the HELOC, have that sitting on the side and then wait for, home prices come down and then go in and start, looking for bargains. And so my question in that context is, what do you guys as people who are in the industry see as, where do you think home prices will kind of go down to on a percentage basis? And do you think that's a good strategy, or are there kind of hidden pitfalls, given that the Fed's going to be possibly raising rates again this month, to that situation?
Okay, we'll start with you, Tirrell, then you, Dwight.
Okay. Well, first of all, I will say this, and not making this a Bank of America show, but I would say that the best HELOCs that I've ever dealt with were with Bank of America. There are no costs for them. What a HELOC is a home equity line of credit. So that line of credit, that's not saying that you're getting a loan, you're getting a line. So it's like a credit card. So let's say that you qualify for $100,000. It doesn't mean you have to use it. You can keep it there as long as you want to. Well, not as long as you want to. I think they give you 10 years. But it's there for a rainy day. And so I think it's a great idea because there's no cost to them. There's no closing costs on the Bank of America home equity line of credit. Now, there's other companies that do charge you money. Now, you can get a fixed rate, but most of them are adjustable. So if you look at it, you got to make sure you decide if you want to fix or adjustable. The adjustable is always lower. But I do think it's smart to have because what happens is 5 years from now, your kids go to college, you need some money. Instead of having to get qualified, you already have that home equity line of credit that you don't have to call anybody to qualify. You literally click a button, say I need $5,000, and move it from your line of credit over to your savings account or checking account. So you've already qualified for it, and you're just allowed to work from it. The other part about the interest rates, yes, we do expect rates to go up. The Fed is going to meet; they're going to go up, but they're going to go down too as well. So it's hard for us to indicate to you if we think in 6 months or where the rates are going to be. I just tell all my clients, let's look at your situation now. Let's make a decision, not based on what you think is going to happen in a year. Let's make a decision that's going to work for you right now. And as long as it's affordable for you and it's a good decision, let's do that.
Outstanding. And so if I heard you correctly, Tirrell, and I'm putting this in layman's terms, you've kind of become your own banker.
Yes, sir.
Tirrell, did you get that?
Say it again.
If I kind of read the math on that, you've just become your own bank.
Correct. Yes, you have. Yeah, you have, and you're not dependent on anybody else, or you're not depending on their time. You're allowed to, you've already qualified. You don't have to requalify, and you have a period of 10 years that you can utilize that or not utilize it.
Dwight, any thoughts or any additions to what Tirrell just added?
Yeah, really quick. I think we all think the rates will go up slightly. Personally, I don't think, and this is no crystal ball, it's just my opinion on the show. I don't think the home prices are going to go down drastically because we didn't touch on this today. But overall, we still have a shortage of, inventory around the country is still very, very low. So that's going to prevent prices from falling too drastically. But I like the concept of if you have equity, and this was the first part of the question you asked earlier, what do you do? It's an individual decision. What are your goals? What are you trying to do? Create cash flow, trying to create passive income. and any of those things, getting equity out of your own existing home that's probably appreciated drastically if you've owned it 10 or 15 years, that is absolutely a way. So my client that bought about 6 houses through this pandemic, that's exactly how they started. They had a pretty pricey home, and I think they took about 800,000 out of it and bought 2 cash and bought 2 more, and then took money out of the first one they bought, and they've continued to do that. So if you have equity in the home, that is an absolutely great way to build some wealth by taking some of that equity out. But you want to be talking to your accountant and your CPA and you need to bring some other professionals into the equation besides us. But if you decide that makes sense for you and your situation, we see people do that all the time. And it's an excellent way to build equity and close the gap.
Correct.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, we are just about out of time, but this has been an outstanding conversation. Yeah. Extremely valuable. What I'm going to do now is let you both provide some closing comments before we close this show. Before we do that, do want to give a shout out to At Malone. Said shout out to my guy Tirrell. He's one of the best in the business. He just handled my refinance and my mortgage for my current home. So definitely a shout out to you. And Jimmy, as you would say, you know, we're doing this show for free. But in the interest of time, we'll let both Dwight and Tirrell. Yes, sir. We'll let them give their closing comments. And I see 2 things that have come out of this conversation. Number one, maybe between both of your connections, to have someone come out in the next month or so on our show and talk about investing in real estate in international markets. Maybe between the 2 of you, we can find someone who's in that area. I think that would be an area of interest, number one. And I mean, unless you kind of open and shut the case on HELOCs, I see some opportunity there in terms of being your own bank, and heck, you're paying yourself back. So, I mean, how do you lose there? Maybe we have a show on that one coming up in the near future as well. All right, gentlemen, we'll start out with you, Dwight, and then Tirrell on your closing comments, and that'll be our show.
All right, super quick. Thanks again for the platform, guys. I love what you're doing. It's important, and that this is one of the keys to closing the gap, just putting information out there that's with trusted professionals. So the key is education and partner with trusted professionals. I'll remind Eli, who's in Alvin, right in my footprint, actually, that's in my market area. Whether it's Alvin or anywhere in the country that's listening to this calls, I'm happy to schedule a complimentary consultation at any time. Like I said, we not focused on, we are salespeople, but we're focused on giving information. And if we can give you some information or connect you with people, we're happy to do that. So my information is scrolling. I'm happy at any time to put someone on my calendar for a 30, 45-minute complimentary consultation without any expectation, just to give information.
Outstanding. All right, Tirrell.
I like to say the same thing. Well, thank you very much for allowing both myself and Dwight, to share with the audience. My closing remarks is just this. Don't wait till you're ready to buy or you're ready to invest. Start before then. Ask all the questions. Don't, if you think you're going to buy in 4 years, start now. Let's start getting educated now. Go to people such as Dwight or myself that will that will have your best your best thoughts in mind, and not going to lead you down the wrong way. We're here for you. We want to work with you. We want to be your expert, but we also, I believe we've been in this business long enough to know when to put you with somebody else that's better than ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, Jimmy, we call it a wrap.
All right.